Good day, Zimbabwe. My name is Raquel Kambasha, and welcome to the show, Straight Talk. In studio with me today, I've got Mr. Frederick Mandizviza, the author of the book, Digital Labor Markets and Jobs of the Future for 21st Century HR Practitioners. Mr. Mandizviza, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Raquel.
Lovely. Now, I understand that we have been going through the book. We have been reviewing it a bit. And today we will be focusing mainly on the topic, era of massive digital footprints. Now, Mr. Mandizviza, in chapter 2 of your book, you talk about the era of massive digital footprints. What exactly did you mean by that?
The era of massive digital footprints reflects on the realities that digital millennials and digital citizens face when they get connected to the internet. What it also means is that from the time someone logs onto the internet, whether through an email, whether through your smartphone, you begin to create some traces, digital traces, which remain on the internet, on databases, which means you then create a parallel digital life from the one that you live physically. That's the analysis that we're doing with that aspect.
Okay, I think I am moving with you. I understand what that meant there. You also mentioned that the essence of humanity is rapidly changing. That is on account of internet connectivity. So would you care to explain to us how exactly this is happening and why it's so important for HR practitioners to know that?
You will understand that once the digital or virtual being has been created online, there are various things that come into play. Amongst those things is the creation of a digital personality who is in the virtual universe. In other words, the totality of individuals that are existing within in the online space constitute a population of their own, which is distinct from the physical population of human beings, such as you and I. Mm-hmm. But the essence of it is that each individual who is created online has got their own behavioral traits that they reflect online. And if HR practitioners developed an interest in that and make use of some of the latest tools and technologies to harness that data, that information, and subject it to some scientific analysis using HR data analytics, the HR practitioners can actually paint some trends, some attributes of each individual whose information they have extracted from online databases. And that can be a useful tool in defining whether an individual is employable or not, whether an individual is a hard worker or not, whether they spend more of their time on social media platforms and therefore can become a risk or a cost burden to the company if that individual were to be employed. So there are various ways with which the HR practitioners can approach that whole issue and extract valuable information for purposes of decision making in terms of hiring, in terms of defining the competencies the individual has, and also in terms of probably firing somebody if that individual is already employed. Because you can actually check and see how much time they spend online and how much time they spend creating costs for the company.
Okay, I understand that. I think we are moving in the same direction. I'm getting you a bit. But in as far as I have understood, in terms of Zimbabwe, The furthest we've gone is maybe they'll ask you for your Facebook username. But that's as far as they go. They'll probably just check the timeline. But in terms of actually looking at trying to understand someone's habits and all that, I'm getting from what you're saying that what people present in the interview is more of the alter ego, and the real being is actually there on the internet. Is that where we're going with this?
True. What you're saying is quite correct, that at the moment, when people wanted to hire somebody, what they ask about is probably the furthest is LinkedIn or the Facebook. But look, what I'm referring to is a situation which is fast approaching. It's not yet there, but we are getting there. And at the same time, it doesn't really need for the HR practitioner to wait for the individual to come forward and present their sources or potential sources of digital information. Let me just explain a little bit there so that it becomes a little bit clearer. When you log yourself either on a laptop or on your mobile phone or a tablet, you create some digital traces. These traces can accumulate over a long period of time. And when they accumulate over a long period of time, they create what are called digital breadcrumbs or the digital traces, which are indelible. They cannot be deleted. You can delete them on face value, but underneath they still remain. And what is happening globally out there is that those who want to specialize in this space, they use what is called digital vetting. The digital vetting process is actually doing data mining of all the digital traces related to Raquel, and they subject it to digital HR analytics without Raquel knowing about it. So these are tools which can be used by the HR practitioners, and they can be of value particularly when they want to do headhunting. So you don't know who can actually reach that information from any part of the world. I know there are legal issues around that, and there are also issues of privacy around that. In our part of the world, we haven't dealt with those issues because we don't have the necessary regulations at the moment. But in places like Europe, they've already developed what they call the General Data Protection Regulations, the GDPR, to cover those issues. But in cases where such issues are not regulated, it is quite possible for anyone to make use of the data mining tools that they have and mine your data about your personality online and uncover quite a lot about you without you knowing about it. That's how this works.
All right, I've got that there. And my follow-up question there is, who are parallel digital human beings that reside in the online universe?
Parallel digital human beings are the collective or the collection of digital data or data traces about an individual who is involved in the digital space. I've indicated that the moment you click any key, whether on your laptop or on a tablet, you are creating some data traces, and those data traces accumulate to then paint an individual online. Now, this individual online is virtual by nature, but the characteristics that they display tend to resemble the characteristics and real features of the physical being that you are. Because most of your interests, most of your traits, your trends that you tend to paint along through the use of digital equipment, tend to then paint that kind of a personality online, which when accessed by someone else, they can actually make use of it and paint who you are, whether you like it or not. Each time you send a post on Facebook or on Instagram telling a story about yourself, someone can actually make use of all that collection of information and paint who you are in real life. So those are what we refer to as digital or virtual human beings, parallel to the physical being.
Okay, I've caught you there. My only worry, I suppose, as a rhetoric question is for us, the younger generation, with all the things that we are posting now, thinking that, no, there's no way that anyone is going to find this or anything like that. How employable will we be in the next 20 years?
This is probably a warning to the digital millennials, the tech-savvy young people like yourself, who want to, or who spend probably 60-80% of their time on digital platforms, particularly social media platforms. It is important to be careful what type of material you post, what type of material you input or upload on these platforms. Because sooner or later, quite a lot is going to be uncovered about many people, things that they think have been done in privacy in my own bedroom, quite privately without anybody being aware of it, are going to be uncovered. And it is a challenge that most young people are likely going to face if they become reckless with the kind of material that they create around their virtual beings and their virtual lives. It is important to make sure that you create a virtual being who is a person of integrity, who can actually command the interest of a would-be employer in future if all your data traces or breadcrumbs are collected and they are subjected to cyber vetting.
Okay, and just as a follow-up question, so why should digital era HR practitioners pay special attention that is to digital traits of individuals in cyberspace?
It's very important for HR practitioners of the 21st century to realize that apart from the probably traditional ways of data collection and information accumulation about potential employees, there's become a whole new space in the digital or cyber physical system where most of our young people tend to spend more of their time interacting, creating relationships, and also where they tend to express their essence, express who they are. And if our HR practitioners were to turn into that space and do data mining, they could actually extract quite a lot of valuable information which is useful for decision making on whether to hire this individual or not, based on what they have discovered online. So it's important that our HR practitioners decide to move away from analog systems of vetting individuals for possible employment, but to make use of the current technologies, because this is where life is going to. And apart from that, it must be known that when you use analog systems, the possibility of feigning by potential employees is very high. But when you use the cyber vetting tools, the chances of a potential employee feigning are very slim, because this data has been accumulated in probably what we could call a natural environment for the individual. Because young people find the internet world cyber-physical world as their natural world as we speak. Because you cannot live outside the internet, isn't it?
We can't.
Yes. So getting information about you from the internet is much more reliable at the moment than actually trying to interview you one-on-one and then you could explain to me who you are. It's a bit difficult.
We'll tell you what you want to hear.
Absolutely.
Okay, and could you possibly shed more insights into your suggestion that the hunting ground for talent has shifted or is shifting to the digital space?
It's exactly what I've just explained, Raquel. It is important for our HR practitioners to now redefine the hunting ground for talent. In the past, it used to be based on the CV that one would send to the potential employer.
Yes.
It would also depend on hearsay, what other people could say referring a particular potential employee to this potential employer. But things have changed. And the change is such that everything is shifted towards the digital space. Because life itself is getting more and more immersed and connected to the internet. And therefore, if the HR practice is to continue deriving value from the processes that they undertake until they employ somebody or to charge somebody, they have to shift towards the cyber-physical space. Logic tells us that you cannot continue to use old methods which are outdated in a new environment, the 21st century, because the kind of millennials that we have today have got different characteristics which can formulate a completely different image when it's analyzed in the context of online facilities and tools, as opposed to the physical space. So it's important that we move and shift towards the digital space.
Okay. No, I understand that. We got that very clearly there. But I do understand that today you brought in studio the series of the book. Could you possibly just introduce them to the public so that a lot of people will be able to know which book comes after this one so that they can properly implement this new system that you've got?
Thank you, Raquel, for that. I have brought 3 of my books which I have published. The first one is the introduction to the physical, cyber-physical system. This is for 21st century leadership. This one takes the reader through the introductory phase of what the cyber-physical system is all about. It introduces the reader to the intricacies of the Internet of Things and possibly the industrial Internet of Things, and how African leaders should begin to focus on this space, which of late is assuming critical importance when we talk about the industrialization and modernization of Africa. So this is the introductory part of it. This is followed by an introduction to digital transformation and Industry 4.0. Now, this book is meant for Africa's 21st century leadership as well. This one takes the reader through an analysis of what digital transformation is all about, how it can be undertaken, the benefits that Africa can derive from digital transformation. It also sets the tone for the embracing of Industry 4.0, which is the 4th industrial revolution. It touches on a few elements of the first, second, and third industrial revolutions, which we discussed in our last episode. And it's a very good book because it allows the reader in a very simplified manner to appreciate what digital transformation is and what the fourth industrial revolution is. Then these are followed by the digital labor markets and jobs of the future, which is now focusing in a specific area of human resources.
Okay, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A common saying is that you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. But according to Mr. Mandishita, it's high time that HR practitioners make use of this book, Digital Labor Markets and Jobs of the Future for 21st Century HR Practitioners. So that not only do you make sure that you are hiring more effective personnel, but you are making sure that from the person that someone will show you in the interview versus who they really are, you will get that true picture of who that person is, and perhaps you will be able to boost the production in your companies. Well, Mr. Mandijiza, thank you very much for having us today. Do you have any parting words for the viewers today?
Sure. I can just state that this book is a university undergrad textbook, but it can also be used for any other program apart from the HR professional. It can be used to underpin any other program in universities or at diploma level.
All right. And just to make sure, because I do have a feeling with the way that the whole world is moving towards the digital space, you are one man that probably a lot of Zimbabweans, a lot of Africans, and even in the world, someone they will be hunting for to make sure that they get this book. So if you would want to contact Mr. Frederick Mandijiza, there is a number on the screen that you can get in touch on him with, and his email will also be provided. Well, that's it for you today, viewers. Have a lovely day.